All right. I think we're live. Hey, Roger. How's it going?
It's going good. Just got home
Good.
from work.
Yeah, nice. I don't know if anyone's joined us yet, and we might just be alone because no one really likes me. They're probably here for you, so they're gonna trickle in. But we'll just chat, and if people watch this later, then that's cool. So yeah, how's it going? You just got home. So where do you work? Like, do you work at the?
So, as a
You do
graduate
research,
student in
right?
the sciences, as a
Yeah.
graduate student in the sciences, you get paid a stipend. So, I'm basically
Cool.
salaried to go in and do research, and
Cool.
as part of my school.
Yeah. Do you enjoy it? Or is that just part of the gig? Like you kind of have to.
Do I enjoy what research in general
Yeah.
or grad
Yeah.
school?
We'll talk more about grad school soon, probably. But yeah, the research part of it, which is a huge
Research in
component,
general, I
probably.
think, is cool. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's what sucked me into coming here, but grad school is not cool. So, like, I
Yeah.
want to continue doing research, like, but I think I don't want to be in academia at all. I hate it so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Hi,
gotcha. I
Alicia.
gotcha. Yeah. Well, why don't we? I mean, as people trickle in, do you want to maybe let people know a little bit about yourself, your channel, what you do over there, and where people can find you and stuff? So,
About which? Myself or my channel? Or is
all
my
of it.
channel my whole personality? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. We'll dig deeper. We'll dig deeper. Maybe a bit about your
I mean,
channel and yeah.
hello. My name is Rodger. I started Booktube probably, I guess, just over a year ago, December 30th, 2021. I am a fantasy booktuber. I pretend like I dabble, but I really don't because every time I do, I hate books. I've tried some domestic thrillers and they were awful. I blame Jack for that one. And then I'm sure you can see I have like all fantasy behind me. I got my like Sanderson, my Witcher, my Keeper of the Lost Cities, Forgotten Realms, Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time, other stuff.
You've got everything, all the staples, pretty much. That's awesome.
I
Hi,
mean, that's
Alicia.
pretty much it. I just rant about books, and I'm not afraid to be that salty person who is not nice about the books. You will never catch me being constantly, relentlessly politically correct like Theo. You will hear me dig into it if I need to dig into it.
Yeah, and you call me out sometimes. You're like, you'll message me. Hey, why were you so delicate about that? Well, like, what? How did you really feel? Like, why don't you tell us? It's super funny. And I love your rants, and I love your personality. And actually, the way I discovered you was, Madison and I, we've become really close friends, and we were talking, and we both kind of around the same time like posted a link to your video to each other or something. We're like, have you seen this Rodger guy? Like, this guy is hilarious. Like, we love it. And I think the first couple videos I watched from you were very ranty, always respectful. And I think you always give a lot of rationale for why you feel a certain way, and you do let us into how you're feeling and your emotions and that kind of stuff. But definitely, you don't hold
I
back.
don't
And I
attack the
kind of
author. I don't attack the
no,
author, and I don't attack people who
exactly.
like the book. But
Yes,
if it's
exactly.
anything about the book, fair game. I will annihilate.
Yeah, yeah. I love the rants. Do you follow kind of a template on your reviews, or do you always go in and just kind of go with the flow? Obviously, you try and touch on certain points because your reviews are always quite articulate, and you always kind of touch on all the things I want to hear. But do you go in with a template, or do you just go, I hated this one, I'm just going to roll with it, or I really like this one, we'll see how that one goes?
I try to do like general thoughts and feelings, and then I
Mhm.
break it into like more detail if people want it about the world building, the characters, and the plot. But if it's a rant, sometimes I don't want to talk about any of those things. I just want to talk about my rage,
Right.
specifically with like House of Sky and Breath or Babel. Like those two
Now,
made me want to just rage.
House of Sky and Breath, that was your most disappointing of last year, right? Was that
I
Sarah J.
mean,
Maas?
disappointing is not strong enough. Most loathed is probably closer.
You've
Like
had a
I don't think I've
rocky,
ever I don't
like,
think I've ever viscerally hated a book so much.
so, but it's interesting. So say, I've heard that a little bit, and I think with Sarah J. Maas, like you've gushed a little bit about certain books, or maybe you've given credit where it was due is probably a better way to put it. But
Yeah, I don't know that
you've
I've ever
also ranted
gushed.
quite a bit, right?
She's a mixed bag for me, and I've just decided that
Yeah.
the way that she does romance, I don't like the way that she does romance. She very much leans into that whole toxic masculinity type romance where it's like the alpha male, and
Hmm.
she likes to even make fun of herself sometimes. So in the Crescent City series, which is House of Sky and Breath is the second one,
Mm-hmm.
she even will jokingly have somebody call them an alpha hole, like an alpha male a-hole. And it's just like, I just hate it.
It's a
And then
bit
people are
much.
always like, the romance is like goals. And I'm like, okay, you want a guy to mistreat you, to treat you like you're like furniture and only be lusting after you. It's dumb.
Yeah, I think you mentioned there was like quite a toxic relationship in that one that you just were not there for. Yeah, not
I
cool.
mean, without being spoilery, one of the characters literally lies the whole book. They get into life and death situations because she is hiding information from them. And then the big reason why is because she didn't trust him to be on her side. And I'm like, this is relationship goals?
Wow, not cool. Hey Ben, how's it going? By the way, John, what's going on? Thanks for joining us, and Shad. I've noticed a lot of accountants on BookTube are really into fantasy. So I'm in finance. I'm not an accountant. You might be referencing me on this one, but yeah, I'm in finance, and I manage like a loan portfolio and work with corporate accounts. I'm basically a corporate banker, and that's kind of what I do. And I always get mixed up with accountants. People are like, "Oh yeah, like can you do my taxes?" I'm like, I can't really. I know how to, but I won't. But it is interesting. A lot of people in the sciences and a lot of people in the finance world that I've met are very into fantasy, which is interesting. Like I work with a couple guys that read only fantasy, and I'm like, wow, like I don't know a whole lot of people in real life that read. And if they do, it's more contemporary or classics or nonfiction or whatever. So, do you have a lot of friends in real life that read fantasy? Can you talk to friends over a coffee about a book, or is that why you got into BookTube?
I mean, ish. Now that I've started a channel, I'll talk to some people at work sometimes about books,
Hmm.
but not really. And like my
Yeah,
husband used to read a lot. Like I used to talk about that all the time on my channel about how I got into like the Forgotten Realms in particular, because I had a bunch
yeah.
of Forgotten Realms books. And then when we started dating, he also had a bunch of Forgotten Realms books, but we never had any of the same. So when we
Oh,
actually like moved
interesting.
in together, we got to like merge our collections, which was really satisfying. So
Yeah,
like he's probably the closest, but he doesn't read as much anymore because I think he's just got sucked into the work drama and just is too burnt out when he gets home.
yeah, yeah. What does he do, by the way?
He's a senior pharmacy technician for a specialty branch of Walgreens, so it's a lot of like blister packing
Oh,
of the crazy expensive medications that are
oh,
limited
wow.
distribution, that they have extra layers of like regulations on top of, that if you're off by certain amounts you'll lose your license to be able to distribute that drug. So like it's a lot harsher of an environment than like regular retail pharmacy.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds crazy. Ben says he's here for your rants, so it's cool. He's all about it. It's fine. I think I could probably, you know, I don't know if there's a book that I really dislike, and actually I'm going to ask you this question in a different way. Um, how do you approach books that you don't like? Do you try to stay away from them a little bit, except for the ones that you have very, very, like rage for that you want to talk about? But on the whole, the books that don't really land with you, do you talk about all of them? And do you try and, how do I want to say this? On BookTube, there are videos that get a lot of views where people are very ranty, very negative, very whatever. And a lot of people tend to prioritize those because they get more views, they get more clicks, whatever. Do you deliberately stay away from those unless you have a compelling reason to rant? Or do you just go, look, here are the reviews for all my books, or as many as I have time to do. These ones I liked, these ones I didn't. And that's just how it is.
I mean, I do monthly wrap ups, so I'll talk
Hmm.
about every book regardless.
Yeah.
But as far as making like individual book reviews,
Like
it
a
has to
rant
have
review. Yeah.
I have to have strong feelings one way or the other. I either loved
Okay.
it or I did not love it.
Okay. And so you don't steer away from doing a full on negative rant review if that's what you felt compelled to do, right?
Oh, not at all. Like I
Because
don't
I
care.
because I steer away from it a little bit. Like if I really didn't like a book, I am a little bit reluctant to not put that out. I don't care. My opinion's my opinion. We're all adults. It's fine. But I tend to save my passion and my time and my recording for stuff that I enjoy more of, right? I have to be a little more strategic with my time. So I don't know. Maybe I should fit more of those in and balance
Well,
it
I
out.
find it
Because
cathartic. It's almost
right,
cathartic to be able to just
right,
rage for like half an hour. And I also have found that like people are always concerned that they're like hurting the author or whatever. But I found that people sometimes we did read Babel together and both of us hated it. It was awful.
Oh
But
man.
but like I feel like people are so hesitant because they're worried that they're going to hurt somebody's feelings, and there are a lot of people like that on the internet where they like their whole personality is tied up with whatever media that they consume, and so they feel like
Right.
you attacking that is attacking them. But that's who cares. I
Right.
find that a lot of like rational, reasonable adults that I would actually care to converse with in the first place
Yeah.
appreciate even negative reviews, because sometimes you'll still give them buzzwords that are like, oh well, I love it when it's slow character whatever, or I love this kind of
Right.
weird dynamic of like toxic masculinity, because I know there's a lot of, it's interesting to me because a lot of girls will always talk about how like they love it in books but they would hate it in real life, and so sometimes when you say those things somebody's like, oh sweet, I'm gonna read that book. So I find that
Right.
it's that old philosophy of any publicity is good publicity, because you're still putting that book out there for people and theoretically talking about what it's about.
Right.
So like I don't feel bad about it, and the people that are going to whine at me, I've had a couple people. It was mainly the Babel review that I got pushed back on, and it was like the first time I had to learn how to hide from channel, because there were some people that were just like,
Oh,
I
really?
hate your whole vibe, and I was like, well, I hate you too. Hide from channel.
Yeah. So listen, you're gonna get some of that.
I
Yeah,
don't care.
it is what it is.
I just had to be like, messaging my more senior booktube friends, like, what do I do? How do I block somebody from my channel?
Right. I bet they deal with it a lot.
Yeah.
That going back, yeah, like in real life, like if you were to sit down and talk about a book, like that's why we do booktube, I think, for the most part. And when I say do booktube, I mean engage with the community and also record videos from this side of the camera. We want to be able to talk about the good things and the bad things. It's just on booktube, that shit's permanent. And so if you do something, that bothers somebody or something very negative, because if I was talking to you, over a coffee, whatever, I'd be like, oh my God, I read this terrible book, but I also read this great book and blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't hide from the negativity, but on booktube, I'm a little more discerning that way. And I'm kind of just getting more used to being, okay with the negative stuff and having a more balanced persona on YouTube. Because I was talking to some friends of mine and they were mentioning that there's, they were watching a channel, for example, and it seemed like they were overly positive. They were only positive. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to be known as the guy that just like talks about everything I like either, right? I also don't want to be the ranty guy that hates on everything. So there is a balance to strike there.
That's why I talk about everything, but when I'm doing specific reviews, I probably won't make a dedicated rant review unless it's something that I really hate. And I tend to be more thoughtful about like the kind of author, like me spending like 30 to 40 minutes hating on Sarah J. Maas is not hurting her. She is fine. Whatever
Of
her
course.
publisher
Yeah.
is, I'm not taking any
Right.
money from her children's mouths. Whereas if I did that with like a small indie book, I would probably feel worse about it. So like
Sure.
I do kind of pick and choose. I will like think about it, and I find that especially if I'm like middle of the road, slightly negative on like an indie book, I'll still be honest and be like, I didn't love this, and here's what it's about, but I won't be like as gung-ho with it. So I do have some level of heart and thought, but usually I don't care.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, how's it going? Thanks for joining us, and John. So speaking of indie books, in reading a little bit more indie books, a little bit more self-pub stuff is a goal of mine for 2023. What are your main goals for reading, for the channel? Where do you see the channel? What are you trying to do this year?
I mean, at this point, it's kind of just like a little safe haven to focus on stuff that I love, because I'm in the final like 4 months of my PhD. So I'm working on writing my thesis, working on finding a job, working on finding a place to move and live and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like I haven't really put any goals in particular. I think I'm just trying to be more intentional about following through on things that I own and or things that I'm like in the middle of, like series that I forgot that I started. So I went, and there's this Allie from Hardback Hoarder. She put out this really beautiful spreadsheet for tracking your reading that you can use through like Google Sheets, and it was like $5. And so I'm trying to use that and like be more intentional about like the statistics, and there's pages for keeping track of the series that you're in, and it like helps just do all of that. So I'm also like trying to catalog all of the books that I own, which I didn't realize that I own like almost 600 books, which is a little obnoxious. Wow. But I've read 75% of them. Yes, and I've read 75% of them. So
wow,
I'm not
bad.
doing too bad. But I mean, they're up there. They also are now like starting to spill over because I need a new shelf. So
I love it. Yeah, it's a good problem, I guess, right? How does your husband feel about the booktube stuff, about the overflow shelves, about like how? Because I know my wife is like, what are you doing? Like, what happened here? Is he cool? Like, obviously he read. You guys have that in common, but is he supportive? Is he like confused why people love you? Like, what's happening?
Yes, I mean, obviously. I mean, we've been together 15 years this November, so like he's very confused why people would love me.
I love it.
No, I mean, I've always had a shit ton of books in my life.
Yeah.
Like, this is not like a booktube generated problem. This is a lifelong thing that ever since I was little, because I had not the best childhood growing up with like an abusive alcoholic father. So like books were always the like escape that I would do. And so I have been collecting books since I was like, I'm 33, but thank you so much. But I saw a comment where like somebody's like, you look 23. I was like, no. So I've just been collecting books my whole life, and it's always just been the fantasy genre in particular for me. And so he's not surprised because I've always had a ton of books, and so he has always been an enabler where he's like, oh, you've had a rough day. Do you want to go to Barnes and Noble? And I'm like, okay.
I sure do. Yeah, totally. I love it. Yeah, now it's kind of a normal thing. My wife Natasha and I will be driving. We'll hit a coffee shop, whatever, and she'll be like, "Oh, there's a bookstore there. Like, do you want to pop in there?" I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of do." So it is what it is. Hi, thanks for joining us.
There's one bookstore in SoCal that I love. That's in San Diego. That's called Mysterious Galaxy, and it's only sci-fi fantasy in the whole bookstore. So I love going there because I'm just like, this is my place.
You know, I do notice that a lot of, and I don't know what it's like where you live in California, but out here in Canada, especially, first of all, we don't have great used bookstores. We have some. The books are quite pricey, and there's not a whole lot of like good thrifting available to us. But also, the bookstores have a really limited fantasy and sci-fi selection. Is that something that most readers find in bookstores, or is that just out here, or what?
No, I think it's true most places. And just first of all, about First Binding, he's not a newer author. He had like 6 or 7 self-pub books, and that's his premier like trad pub book, but he is not a new author by any means. And he writes in a very masturbatory style. So
that's what you said. That was our
everything
right?
about First Binding. I forget.
Yeah. I've heard really divisive opinions on that one for sure. Yeah.
Well, even Petra got trashed, right? Because he loved it, and then people are like, "Oh, it's too much like Name in the Wind." He's like, "Well, I never said it wasn't."
Yeah. Hi, Michael. Thanks for joining us. By the way,
fantasy sections. Yeah, I think that's true. That's why I know the 4 or 5 Barnes and Nobles around me, and so like when that hardback sale just came up in the U.S. for like half off all hardback books, I went to like 5 different. I did
because you can't find much, right?
I woke my husband up and I like saw the tweet. And so it was like the first day it started and the bookstore hadn't opened yet. And I was like, get up, we're going to go get coffee and go book shopping.
Yeah. So I wish we had, there are so many times where I wish we had a Barnes and Noble. We don't have anything like that. I mean, we have Indigo or whatever, and it's just a large chain, but we don't have like those sales. Like I never see those, even on Audible. Like we don't get the sales that you guys do in the States. And I did hear some other people saying, yeah, they had a Barnes and Noble sale, but they couldn't find very many fantasy hardcovers that they would want. So they had to go to multiple locations anyway, just to get enough books to make it feel like worth it. So, yeah.
Well, that wasn't it for me. It's more just because I'm fanatical about conditions. So I will be that hoe through the whole stack of like 5 or 6 of them.
I'm the same way.
I will pull off the dust jackets and I'll find the best combination of best dust jacket and best naked hardback.
I do that. I sometimes do that. Okay, let me ask you this. Do you return Amazon books? No. Like if there's just a tiny little thing wrong with it, do you just send it back? Or do you not order from Amazon?
I try not to order from Amazon because I've found that I just get frustrated because I will do that game of returning as many times as they'll let me until they give me the nicest version.
Yeah.
But like, it's it's very frustrating. And then sometimes you're like, well, is this a publisher problem? And just like all of them are banged in this certain way, or is this a you problem? Because sometimes you'll hear the delivery driver come and they'll like throw it at the door and it's in that stupid like envelope, and I'm like,
it's the worst. It's the worst. Michael likes your bookshelves, so all the books in good condition on your shelves. He likes.
Well, I also am very artful. I do a lot of the facing out of my favorites so that you just don't ever get to see.
Yeah. This was never like I was never planning on doing this booktube thing, and I had never planned to set up, to have as many books as I do now. In fact, my setup is weird because I have some over here, I have some over there, and then in my other rooms I have other shelves with different books. So I wish I had the space. It's ridiculous, and my OCD just hates it. But I wish I had space to be able to put everything nicely together. And I do love the way that you've kind of set everything up. And I like to have like little like knickknacks and stuff, and like mugs or whatever, like just themed stuff. It would be nice to have everything on a couple different shelves in one area anyway. But it's just the way that the setup is. So.
Yeah, these are the only bookshelves. We have another shelf out in the living room, but it's for like video games and TV shows when we used to collect the DVDs of TV shows.
Yeah. We just went to, hi, Nikki. We just went to my father-in-law's last night to watch some shows, and we went out for a dinner and stuff. And he's one of those people that has always collected DVDs and CDs. And he has one room, like basically a sitting room, with TV. All the walls, like floor to ceiling, are all DVDs. It's insanity. And he just collects it, and he buys everything. So he's just a collector. Some people just like, and he does the same with records and stuff as well. So it's pretty cool. 33.
Well,
so I would agree. You do look young. I am turning, what day is it? It's the 20th. I turn 36 in 6 days from now. I don't know how to feel about that because now I'm after the mid 30 area. I'm closer to 40 than I am to 35. 40, you're basically 50, halfway to 100. I'm basically dead. So I don't know how to feel about that. But we'll see how that goes.
Well, imagine you were still in an academic setting and surrounded by a bunch of early 20-year-olds.
So I actually have I can actually relate a little bit, Rodger, because I went back to school kind of late. I actually have a weird background. I worked in the trades for a while. I worked in construction. I worked in manufacturing. I worked in like different, I ran my own business for a while. And then I went back to school for finance to finish my business degree. And I went back at like 23 or something, 24. And not only that, at that point I was going to school full time, working full time, paid for my own braces because my parents could never afford it. So I was like 25 years old, 24, 25 years old, going to college with like 18-year-olds wearing braces, like just feeling like an absolute piece of crap. And eventually it all worked out. But I can understand. It's a weird vibe. I would study with some of the older kids. My friends were like the 40-year-olds that like were like doing part-time school and stuff, right? Like that was my crew because I just couldn't relate to the young kids. It's weird.
I mean, that was the same thing as me because like I was originally I wanted to do musical theater. So I was going to go to school in New York. And then when I was 18, I got seriously injured and had multiple reconstructive foot surgeries and couldn't walk for over 6 months. And then during that 6 months, I was like, okay, well, what can I do? Because they told me, keep doing what you're doing and you'll be lucky to walk by the time you're 30. So I was like, okay. So then I had to think about it. And I was like, well, I always liked chemistry. So I went to junior college and got my AS in chemistry. But that whole time I had been teaching martial arts. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll open a martial arts school. And then I'm sure like the martial arts is such a political land mine.
It's very
where we wanted to open a school in Capitola, but theoretically we would have to go through our grandmaster because he's the connection to Korea, right? Because he's the one who came here from Korea and brought it with him. And so he decided that he wanted to give that city to somebody else. Gotcha. And so then we couldn't open a school there anymore. And so then it was just like all this political garbage. And I was like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. So then I went back and got my bachelor's in chemistry. And I wanted to just become a clinical lab scientist, like just get a bachelor's and work and be done. And then my sneaky academic advisor was like, oh, have you ever thought about graduate school? I think you'd be great there. So then in my last year of undergrad, I started doing undergrad research. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I could do this. And now here I am, and I hate grad school so much.
I know, but you're almost done. It is what it is. Like it's an investment, whatever. We actually, we do have a very similar background as we both grew up doing martial arts. We both did Taekwondo for many, many years. Both are black belts, probably multiple degrees, I would think, on your side. And ended up teaching and stuff. I think you took it one step farther. I think I saw a picture of you way back refereeing and at a tournament or something. And I think you were much more involved at a later age than I was.
Till last year, I was one of the referee chairs for Southern California for
so that's
California
legit.
Taekwondo.
For people
Yeah.
that don't know, that's legit. I stopped when I was probably 16 or 17 doing that. I did a bunch of other stuff afterwards. And then up until like early 20s, I kind of didn't do anything, and then got into other martial arts after that. Some Muay Thai and some judo and stuff, and then MMA before it was like really, like before UFC was really a thing in my early 20s. Like no one really cared. And now I do jiu-jitsu, and there's actually a jiu-jitsu like hoodie. But yeah, I'm loving that. You mentioned you wanted to try it at some point. Have you ever tried it?
Jiu-jitsu? I've done it.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was 17 and I first started teaching the school that I was at, my instructor did like a bunch of mixed styles that he would teach. So we primarily did this traditional Korean style that was a mix of combative Hapkido and then like kind of kicks and punches of Taekwondo kind of merged.
Right.
And then he also liked to include jiu-jitsu because most traditional martial arts don't do anything for once you're on the ground. And so he liked to kind of include that as like a more comprehensive full picture thing.
Right.
But I don't know. Jiu-jitsu was just never my thing. I would rather just kick you really hard and not.
So that was always my thing too. I did a little bit of Jeet Kune Do as well, which was Bruce Lee's sort of martial arts derivative of like Wing Chun Kung Fu. And I've done a bunch of stuff. And jiu-jitsu was always a thing I was worried about because, as you know, being a stand-up striker, Taekwondo, very leggy, right? Going to the ground felt very odd. More odd than wrestling because you're actually supposed to be comfortable on the ground and actually sometimes invite people to the ground into your guard and stuff. And it's bizarre. It's really, really weird. So it's been a huge challenge for me in terms of cardio, in terms of, because it's a totally different thing. I have friends that I've invited for classes and stuff, and I've been doing it for like 3 years now. So like, I've been doing it. Like, I'm still kind of on the low, beginner or whatever, because it takes forever. But I'll invite people, and I've invited like a bodybuilder who's a friend of mine who just gassed in 5 minutes and couldn't do it. I invited another friend who is like a marathon runner and just very, very competitive and like, track and field and all that kind of stuff. And just, he was like, this is insane because it's a different kind of cardio that you can't really train for. It's just, it's very weird. It's hard to explain, but it's good. It's a challenge. I wanted to address this, but
great for people that are 6'7". Like,
yeah. So
like,
we're
more
both
than
tall.
anything, I have longer lever arms for people because like jiu-jitsu is a lot about like appropriate leverage against more nuanced parts of the body. It's not really like, just because you're bigger, it's not necessarily like an asset.
No, it's very technical. Yeah.
Whereas in stand-up fighting, kicking and punching, like my range matters, but in jiu-jitsu that benefit is lost and it's more of a hindrance because I can't get into like the close stuff when people are too up on you.
Yeah. So we're both pretty tall. So you're 6'7" and I'm 6'4".
Yeah.
So I get it. I'm not as tall as you, but I get it. Apparently Matt is going to be doing a 0-star first binding review. So that'll be interesting. Matt has some interesting. Yeah, Matt has some interesting reviews. One of the ones that he recommended, well, no, he didn't recommend. He did a review on Kings of the Wild, and he was and he like loved it. He said, and I've heard multiple people gush about it, and so I picked it up after that video, being like, "There's no way this book is as good as you've said." So I'm calling him out. It sucks. I'm coming after him. I'm going to jujitsu him. But yeah, no, there's a bunch of books on Booktube that like I've just been curious about. So when I hear them pop up all the time, I'm kind of a sucker for that. But hi Bonnie, how's it going? Yeah. So do you want to be super jealous, Rodger? I made a mug because I'm a loser. Look. Because I was like experimenting. I'm like, oh, like I kind of want my own. I'm drinking everybody else's mug. Fuck, like I'm gonna drink my own mug.
My mug is better.
Yours is probably
I have
awesome.
the Lord of the Rings the musical mug.
That's pretty cool.
From when it was a musical in London for like 3 years in the like early 2000s.
I love it. Let's see. It's good you did Booktube because you have a good channel. I appreciate that, man. I found you in the comments of the Nerdy Narrative. Oh, very cool. Leslie's awesome. And I have your book behind me, so I've been meaning to read it. So your book, John, is going to be probably a priority. There's a couple self-pub books that I'm going to really try and get to in 2023, and yours is coming up. Wow, thank you. So that's all. Thank God, man. You made me feel a lot better about turning 36. Very strange. Very strange. Hi, Mark. How's it going? Your books are also something I have to check out too. Chris always gushes about them. I've chatted with you at length as well, Mark. So I'm going to get around to them, I promise.
It's also in my top of last year video, Blood of the Spear.
Yeah, that's right. I keep hearing about it in different pockets of Booktube, and apparently it's very, very good. I do have
Well,
the
if you
same.
like classic fantasy with that more modern twist with a little bit more nuance to the character, then you'll love it. But if you don't like classic fantasy, then it
I
might annoy
do.
you. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if it's done well, it's cool. There's nothing wrong with classic. Um, yeah, Chris was in here. Yeah. Let me catch up a little bit. Hey, Cal, what's going on? I appreciate it. Cal is one of those people that I met very early on in Booktube. Him and I were we had like, I don't know, 20 subscribers, 50 subscribers. We were kind of coming up together, figuring the whole thing out. And very quickly, he took time away to write a novel. And he was like posting every day about writing so many pages a day. And literally, like within a few months, he finished his book. And now you can get it on Amazon. I've been meaning to reach out to him to get a signed copy just to support.
Was
And
he
I'll
a
get around to that.
NaNoWriMo person? Was it November?
No, I don't think it was. It was just like he wanted to write. I think he's a
But it was
teacher.
very
and
that where he was updating with the word counts and stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And I was kind of surprised that he just start to finish. He just like finished it. It was awesome. Apparently it's pretty good. So South America has zero fantasy at our bookstores and everything is Dutch. Very interesting. I'm always frustrated. Like it seems to be a common thing when I go to a bookstore. There's very limited fantasy. It's just kind of one of those weird things. Oh, thanks, Derek. I appreciate it. Yeah. Do you collect mugs? Like, do you have?
I have a bunch of
more?
them. I have my
Yeah.
favorite one that I need to clean out still because I want to use
Yeah.
it instead because I have this Ursula mug where it's all the tentacles because
Oh,
I am
cool.
that Disney person.
Yeah. Yeah. I made a mug with my book cover art and shit. It's so cool looking. You got to like make that stuff for sale, man. That'd be kind of cool. If I read your book and I enjoy it, I will take a mug. So, yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. I've heard, John, for real, I've heard a lot of good things about your book, and I'm excited because I think it's going to fit kind of what I'm looking for in the first maybe quarter of 2023. So, hi Jane, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. Yeah, definitely. Sweet. Yeah. So, what are you reading right now?
Ship of
I just
Magic
finished Game
by
of
Robin
Thrones,
Hobb.
by the way. I just finished
Did
Game
you?
of Thrones.
Congrats.
Yeah, well, not
It's
just.
a
I mean,
chonker.
it is, and I loved it, and I actually because so this is interesting. So I was like I was gushing about this book, and I wanted to tell everybody about it, and I told people that wanted me to read it for so long that I really enjoyed it because they were like excited for me to experience it for the first time. And I was like, Booktube doesn't need another review of this book, but I also wanted to. I don't have friends that read in real life, so I mean they know how to probably, presumably, but they don't, and I can't talk to them about it. So I wanted to share my thoughts. So I did. I just filmed a video early, like when I finished it, just my reaction, my thoughts as a first time reader, just how I felt reading it, what I liked and stuff, and that kind of. So it's not really a review, but it's kind of just like a man. This book was awesome, and here's what I liked about it. So I'm thrilled to have finally read it, and there's that read along going on, and I'm going to continue with it. You progressed through the series like. Was this a reread when you were reading with Madison recently, or this was your first time too?
Yeah, I've never read it before. I mean, I've watched the show multiple times, but
Okay.
I've never read the books.
Okay. Yeah. It was good. So when you mentioned Ship of Magic,
Ship of
no.
Magic.
So
Yeah.
which one's the first one? Is that Ship of Magic?
That is the first one.
So it's on my shelf behind me, and that was supposed to be the next book I pick up, but we have a Shogun read along, and so I was like, well, I should probably prioritize that because other people are reading it right now.
But isn't that the one that they call your sexy Shogun? Because you
My
have the
sexy
like
Shogun.
bougie.
Yeah, it's super nice. I love it. And yeah, so I started reading that one, and you know what's interesting is it's good. I'm like 2 chapters in. I'm not very far, but it's a thick book, so it's several pages. My reading came to like a screeching halt with that one because it's a lot of like info dumping at the very beginning. The prologue is cool. They're obviously in a storm at sea and stuff. And I don't know, I felt a little bit going from Game of Thrones that I read. I mentioned in the video that I made about it that I forgot that I was reading. I forgot the world around me. I forgot how long I'd been reading. Like it was just an immersive experience. Whereas with Shogun, I felt like a lot of info dumping, a lot of like historical stuff and a lot of timelines and a lot of like political stuff with like different countries. Like you got to get like familiar with the world and the time and history in which it takes place. So it just kind of drew me out of fantasy that I was really, really enjoying. And I think because of the change in genre, kind of, I just stopped reading as quickly. And so I'm struggling with Shogun a little bit. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with obviously 2 books I really want to read and both books that I think I'm going to enjoy, but one is very different and it screws up the rhythm and the momentum a little bit.
Oh,
I feel a little slumpy right now.
I'll swap. I swap so fast. The second I feel that, I'm like, deuces.
I know. Okay, so maybe the problem I guess with this is I've sort of maybe not overcommitted, but I've committed to a read along. And so Shogun is a commitment. All I want to do is reach behind me and grab Ship of Magic. That's all I want to do. And I know Shogun's going to be, I think Shogun's going to be a 5-star read. I'm just like not as in the mood for the last couple of days. I don't know what to do.
Well, because at the end of the day, all you're doing is giving yourself a worse reading experience of something that could be good. And I feel like, especially as booktubers, we feel like almost obligated sometimes to like push through books that we aren't, or even if it's just not the right moment for that book. And it's okay to just put it down.
Yeah,
I was supposed to be doing a buddy read with Mark with the first binding, and it was like.
So you DNF that one? Did you put it down for good? Or did you finish it and you hated it? Okay.
No, I haven't finished it.
I have it down here as well, and I'm a little bit worried. How are you doing with Ship of Magic? How far are you into it?
Like 80%, so almost done.
Oh wow! What do you think so far? Without saying too much, should I put down Shogun for a bit and pick up Ship of Magic?
I mean, it depends. So this one I would say is much more gripping, much quicker for somebody like me, because I didn't love how slow Farseer felt. So because this is multi-POV and we're seeing like more than just Buckkeep with Fitz being emo, I find that has gripped me a lot faster.
Yeah.
And I find the character work more compelling. But I also find that Miss Hobb likes to do kind of obscenely tragic things, and I'm kind of waiting to see the payoff, because I'm somebody like I don't mind that it's there, but there needs to be some kind of catharsis in the book for me to want it. I don't want it just as like a reflection of how horrible humanity could be. That's like not enough for me. Gotcha. I want it to have like catharsis in the book. So like there's this one awful abusive father figure who reminds me very much of my own father, and so like it elicits very strong emotions, but I want there to be that resolution to that emotion, and so far Hobb has not shown me that she does that in like a reasonable time frame. Because I hear everybody say by the time you get to book 16, oh, it's so amazing.
My God,
everything comes together. But I'm like, okay, but what about when I'm in book 4?
Right. Well, I will say, so you and I have both read the Farseer trilogy as a completed thing, and I would argue, I mean, there's a lot more there to that world and that whole series, and there's a resolution, but like it's very open ended.
Really.
Like we didn't really get a whole lot. Whereas Live Ship has its own, contained story, and then each series after that has its own, hopefully. So I'm assuming there are more and multiple resolutions as we continue to get more and more payoff as we get closer to the end.
Well,
right?
Because every other series is Fitz.
Right.
So like 9 of the 16 books are Fitz, so that's probably one overarching story.
That's true. That is true.
And I hear that there are, I don't know how significant they are, but there are like crossovers. Like I hear that there's like a horse in Tawny Man that's named after somebody in the Live Ship Traders. So there are kind of callbacks, but I think that especially Ship of Magic or Live Ship and Rainwild probably feel more distinct to kind of flesh out the world building and things going on other places during Fitz. But like looking at Farseer as an individual trilogy, I felt wildly dissatisfied with like emotional resolutions. I felt like things were almost tied up as an afterthought, and like the purpose wasn't the destination. She is very much that journey before destination type of author, where she wants you to be sitting there in your feels and just kind of going along with the life story. And it's not so much about the resolution, but if you're going to put me through trauma, I need there to be a reason. I don't want to just sit in my feels to sit in my feels. I don't enjoy doing that.
Yeah. It makes me think about somebody who read the Farseer trilogy a long time ago when it first came out and had to wait for a long time for subsequent books, and knowing that other people have finished the whole thing and knowing the payoff that people talk about, I'm a lot more confident going in. But if this was a fresh trilogy that I read, I think I would have a very different view about it and be like, well, where's the rest of it? You know what I mean? And like, cause I can see that not being as satisfying for some people. How did you like Assassin's Quest? I think we talked briefly about it, but
it was my favorite of the trilogy.
I really
But that's
liked
because
it
things
too.
were actually happening.
I
I
liked
didn't
it
love
too,
where things ended up, but
right.
I liked
But it was
the
like wrapping stuff
process.
up. Gotcha.
And we were doing something. We weren't just sitting in the castle being mopey and annoying and like harassing that girl
Yeah.
until she says yes, even though
Yeah.
she says no like 37 times before that.
Yeah. There's some interesting stuff in there. Mark says he read them years ago and liked 2 and 3 much more. So I've heard that as well. That
Like, get ready for trauma, because she ramps up the trauma in live ship.
Jeez.
There's like some pretty, I mean, it deals with slavery and
Right.
abusive childhood relationships. And I think that like the themes in live ship are supposed to be a lot about that cycle of violence,
Mhm.
of things that happen to you and you kind of perpetrate it later on, and kind of like how that happens for a lot of people. So it is, I would say, arguably more heavy than Farseer ever was for me. Like, I don't,
Right.
Farseer never really got me in the feels. Whereas this series, I'm like,
Oh my God. Wow. Okay. Interesting. I'm excited. I think I'm going to need to bounce between those. Here's the other thing. I'm notorious for bouncing between books. I'll take 2 months to read, 2 books or 3 books just because I'm bouncing between them so much. But I'm also doing this readathon for the first time ever, and I'm on Madison's team. And so like, it's imperative that I finish a few books to contribute some points. So normally my enjoyment would be much more, based on bouncing between and mood reading a little bit. I know what I want to read within a specific amount of time, but I mood read between them. Right now, I don't feel like I'm allowed to. So we'll see. Mark DNF's like a champion. So I should
you really
DNF
do.
more too. Yeah.
I mean, I should as well, but
I don't DNF
especially
enough.
with fantasy, especially if it's like classic fantasy, sometimes just being able to be a part of the conversation is enough for me. Even if I don't love the book,
Yeah.
at least I know that what it was, and I can like join in on conversations, because I like being able to have an opinion versus just being like, this is not for me. But for more modern stuff, I'm trying.
Yeah.
I've DNF'd a whole genre. I mean, I've decided that domestic thrillers are ass, and I'll never read another one.
Yeah. How many did you read recently
2.
before? Yeah,
2?
but enough to sample maybe like this style of book and,
Well,
and like the plot.
I asked somebody, so I asked Jack from Jack in the Book Stack, like, because she loves
I love Jack,
thrillers.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, give me a couple of your favorites.
Okay.
And so she gave me like her favorite, and I was like, this is awful, but I finished it.
Right.
And then I asked a different friend, I was like, okay, well, what's your favorite domestic thriller? And they gave me a different one, and I started it, and I was like 15%, and I was like, absolutely not. And I just returned that to the library and was like, never again.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with, and do you get offended if you recommend one of your favorite books to me and I shit all over it? Can we still be friends? Like, does that
so,
offend
like, that's
you?
been happening recently because I watched Leanna and Alex Nieves, and I was watching their live show about Empire the Vampire, and they hated it. And like, I don't necessarily care when people hate books that I love. I hate it when they come for you as a reader, and they're like, "Oh, I don't understand how anybody
you're
ever
stupid
liked
for
this."
liking it, or exactly,
Yeah.
or your tastes
So like,
aren't.
when it crosses that line, then no, we can't be friends. But if it's just you hated the book because the writing style, like, I get it. Like, I'm
sometimes
old
it
enough,
doesn't work
and
for you. Yeah,
I understand that not every book is for every person, especially something like Empire the Vampire that has such a distinct authorial voice that is not like beautiful. It's like crass and like very dry, and so like that I understand rubbing people the wrong way.
Yeah. We'll get back to Empire the Vampire in 2 seconds, but I wanted to address. So Mark says it's very much a sign of the time that Shogun was written, where there's a lot of info dumping at the beginning, and I actually don't mind it, Mark. It's actually it's not too bad. It's just it killed the momentum. I was really enjoying myself. I was super immersed, and things were happening, and plot, characters, blah blah blah, and then it takes time to settle into this new story, and it wasn't really. The prologue was very cool, and a lot was happening, and then it kind of stalled for me a little bit. Speaking of stalling, Empire the Vampire.
You never finished it, did you?
Oh, I didn't. You asked me not that long ago, like, have you finished this yet? Like, what the hell's wrong with you? No, the answer is not. I have not. I'm like 3/4 through ish. And yeah, I don't know. I was enjoying it. And actually I enjoyed it at the beginning. I was like, this book is cool. I can see why people like it. Then there was a little part where I was like, okay, I can see some of the criticisms here. I wonder how this is going to go. And then it's like, no, I actually like it. But then I lost steam with it. And I think maybe it was because I was bouncing around too much between books. I think that's what happened, and I just kind of lost momentum on some. Like for example, like Canius, I'm in the last third of the third book. I want to wrap this up. I'm enjoying myself, but I got pulled into other things, and it's hard to get back into that one. So I wonder what, like, do you read books cover to cover straight through? I know you bounce around a little bit. Do you ever put something down and come back to it like a month or two later and still enjoy it? Do you try not to do that?
That doesn't happen to me very often.
No.
I usually, if I can, I'll have one book going at a time. If I can get
Okay.
the audiobook from the library so that I can do, like, whenever I have time, I can be in that story. But
I do that
most
too.
I'll have two. Most I'll have two. I'll have one going on audio and one going in physical at most.
Okay.
And usually, if I put something aside, I have every intention of coming back. But it's rare it's rare for me to want to put down a book that badly that I don't just push through. So
Right.
I don't know that I have a big enough sample size to say like, oh, I always come back 2 months later, and then I always end up like liking it more or not, because it very rarely happens that I don't just read it cover to cover.
Well, I was actually just gonna say like with what John was gonna like what John's saying is I was going to just read a little bit of another book to get into that one. And my fear is that, and actually what's happened in the past is I get super invested in this other book, and then the other one just like sits there for a while, and I find it hard to get back to that one. And I can only read so many books in a month. Like I'm fairly busy as well. So that's a risk for me, because now I'm like, okay, now I'm into this book, I'm into this series, and this other one is just kind of, off to the side now. So how long I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. You can't read everything all the time. So it is, it is what it
But I
is.
guess the biggest example recently was The Forgetting Moon by Brian Lee Durfee. I think I started it in October, and I
Oh,
just finished it in January. And like I would just
okay.
read a little bit of it, and then I would put it down, and then I'd read a little bit of it, and then I would put it down, and I ended up liking it.
What
But
was
that
that?
one, I think I burned myself.
What was
Because
that
I
due
started
to? Was that because it was
It was
just,
because I started it on pure audio, and I could not care less. Like it
okay.
was Game of Thrones level of complexity and kind of like the political landscape and different characters, different names, different history, different blah blah. It was
Yeah.
like very detailed. And so usually when I'm doing audiobook, I'm doing something mindless like pipetting
Yeah.
500 times at my bench or whatever. And so like I'm like 90% listening, 10% doing something else.
Right.
And for that one, I was like, I don't know who anybody is. I don't know what any of these countries are. I could not care less. And so then I finally came back to it. I got the physical version and finished it with the physical version. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Game of Thrones, I had the audio as kind of a companion from the
Oh my God,
library.
the
So
audiobook is so bad. I hate that narrator
so
so
it's funny.
much.
Roy Dotrice or something. I've heard a lot of criticisms, and there's a couple voices where I'm like, what are you doing? Like his Theon Greyjoy is like just some old man. His Arya is weird. His Tyrion is a little leprechaun, which is borderline
100%.
offensive. But to be honest,
he says Peter Baelish. He says it like
Peter,
37 different ways.
he says Petire, yeah, and he says Joffrey and Jeffrey back and forth.
So bad.
But honestly, it grew on me, and I didn't mind it. But I agree with you. That's a book that I could not do strictly audio. I had to have the actual book, and I had the ebook. I actually don't. I talk in the video that I recorded about Game of Thrones why I don't own the books right now, and how I'm going to rectify that. But yeah, anyway, I don't have a merch store because no one cares about my shit. But I just wanted a mug, so it is what it is. Emo Fitz, yeah, emo Fitz. I hope I like older Fitz more, because yeah, he was. Farseer wasn't flawless for me.
Because I know Angela from Literature Science Alliance had a similar trajectory to me, where in like Farseer, she hated Fitz, probably more than I hate Fitz. Because I think hate is too strong of a word for him. All I said was fluid, and I was like, oh. But
Yeah,
anyways, I'm kind of ambivalent towards Fitz. I don't love him and I don't hate him. But she, after she finished The Tawny Man, like appreciates Fitz more now. And I was like, okay, well, hopefully that's my journey.
Yeah.
I hope that by the time I get to Tawny Man, and I've never heard somebody who pushed through to the end of Realm of the Elderlings that was mad that they did so.
Yeah, exactly. Tawny Man is the one after Live Ship, and then there's Rainwild, and then there's Fitz and the Fool, and that's pretty much it, right? Okay, of the main 16. Okay, yeah, Tawny Man.
One novella that you're supposed to read before Tawny Man.
So I, as part of as part of the readathon, there's one prompt is a novella, and I tried to get my hands on the Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince, or something like that, and I couldn't find it in Canada. at all. Actually, you can't find the ebook, can't find the whatever. Like, it's ridiculous. So I was going to read that because I heard that it doesn't really matter when you read it, as long as you read it before Tawnyman, maybe, or something like that, like you said. But because it talks about the skill and the wit and kind of how that came about and a little bit of history and stuff. So I tried to get my hands on that, but I couldn't. So have you read that? You haven't. Well, obviously you just did Farseer, so yeah, okay. Yang. I don't remember Yang. Do you remember Yang? Is that a typo?
I have no idea. Maybe she misheard one of us say something. I don't know.
Yeah. Happy Friday. Just found Rodger's channel a few weeks ago. Love your energy. Been able to get back to jiu-jitsu. Yeah, I have been a little bit. I was injured for a really long time. And then I got back from vacation and I was but I was sick enough to not go to jiu-jitsu. It's a no-no. You just got to be healthy when you go to things like this. And so I'm back in it.
Especially jiu-jitsu, because you're like all up in there. You could not be closer to their face, drooling on people, sweating on people.
Yeah. So when I first started, it was a bit of a culture shock. Like, you were very close with people. People are sweating all over each other, and it's very, very close contact. So,
and they think it's fun. They think it's funny sometimes. They'll like put their gross, sweaty uniform all up in your face, and you're like, thanks.
100%. I rolled with a guy who had quite long hair, and his hair was just slapping me all slapping me in the face. I'm like, bro, like, no. Anyway,
that's jiu-jitsu.
Yep, that's right.
If I'm sitting on my feels,
yeah, you're wearing them the wrong. Yeah, that's funny. A lot of people think book 3 is a slog.
But I like a traveling story. So, like, I mean, Lord of the Rings is like my favorite series of all time, and it's arguably travel.
So I can see why people would say that, and I would argue that it's a big book it's a slow book, but punctuated with a lot of like good events that I liked. A lot of Night Eyes stuff, which I liked. A lot of different plot threads kind of get woven together, and I enjoyed it. But yeah, I can see people saying it's slow-ish. But I think what happened with me is I enjoyed it a lot more than other people, and I think part of that is because I took so long to get to it. So after Royal Assassin, surprisingly, because the end was crazy. Well, I don't know if it's as crazy as people say, but it was good. I took a while before reading Assassin's Quest. Like, it was months. And had I read it back to back, it might have felt like more of a slog to me.
Well, I think the worst part of me for book 3 was her describing every meal, every time they go to bed. There's a lot of over description that didn't need to be there, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. It was a lot better on a reread.
So many people say Farseer is phenomenally better with context of the full realm of the Elderlings.
Interesting. I wonder.
Pretty much unanimously.
I know
Madison wants to go back and reread Farseer now because
right now. I was just going to say she wants
to.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, I don't know if I got time for that, but I don't bounce. I just read one book at a time. So if I'm struggling, I just push through. I don't DNF. Yeah, I got to get better about DNFing. I like the term just like set it aside or put it down, because I don't never say never. There's very few that I can say definitively like, no, this doesn't work, and I'm just gonna never get back to it. So
The Kind Worth Killing was that for me. 15% in, no.
Yeah. Life's too short to force yourself through a book. Yeah, for sure. Hey, Chaz,
I mean,
how's
if
it going?
You hate it, maybe.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. I think you'll both end up enjoying it. Yeah, I just really want to get to live ship. Like, that's just kind of my Shogun. Like I said, I'll
pick it up tonight.
I think you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take, I think it was John's advice. I'm going to read a couple chapters and we'll see. And if Shogun just needs to sit for a while and be sexy on the shelf and just kind of hang out and shut up, then maybe that's just what has to happen.
Yeah, pick up live ship for a couple days. If you're really into it, cool.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, this is fun, and maybe now you're thinking about Shogun and go back, who cares?
Yeah. I saw Chaz popped in. Chaz, nice to see you. I saw
show.
What's that? Words about a particular show.
What show did I hate?
Oh, do you not know what he's talking about?
No.
Oh, it'll be good to see where this goes. But it reminded me because Chaz put out a video about, I think, Tress in the Emerald Sea, and you enjoyed that one too quite a bit, right?
I had a spoiler-free review up for it, yeah.
Yeah, and it's one that I was going to pick up and read. Would you recommend it? Do you think I'll enjoy it? Or do you think I should read some, because I was going to read Elantris and also reread Elantris because I read it forever ago and don't remember, or Warbreaker I was going to read next as my Cosmere stuff. And then I was going to go back through and do Stormlight and blah, blah, blah. But I want to do some like standalone books.
I don't know that I would recommend it for you. It has a very particular tone, which I think you may or may not like. It's a very dry sense of humor, very like self-aware, snarky tone, because it's like a Cosmere character telling an in-world story. So like the narrative framework is very different. So I don't know. Do you like The Princess Bride? Have you seen like the movie or read the books?
Yeah, I didn't read the book. I have seen the movies, and I've always wanted to read the books or the book. But yeah, I did. Yeah, it's like a book within a book.
Very that tone. That's like that was his biggest inspiration for it. So he and his wife were having like a family night, and they watched The Princess Bride, and she wanted basically like a gender Princess Bride, where it was the girl going on a quest to save the guy, but with that kind of snarky, humorous tone. So that's Tress.
Interesting. Maybe I'll give it a shot, because I did buy the ebook. And I do want to kind of make my way through the Cosmere and catch up with the read along with you guys and stuff. So how is that going, by the way? What's the plan, and where are you guys at now?
We're at the very beginning. So Tress is the first thing. So, I mean, all of us had just read Mistborn. So Mistborn's era 1 and 2 were last year for all of us. So this year it's not Mistborn, it's Tress. And then we're having a live show for it first weekend of February. And then March is Elantris.
Okay. I think I might join you for Elantris then. Maybe I'll wait. I think I'll do that.
Because then the live show for Elantris is beginning of April.
Okay.
So if you read it and you want to be, and you love it, and you want to be in a live show and talk with, I think there's 4 of us, so you're welcome to join if you want.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, cool. Yeah, hopefully I can get to it. I mean, that's plenty of time. Shogun, am I still reading it? Yes, I'm still reading it, but I mean, shit. I don't know. I don't know. For some reason, I hit the brakes, and I think I just need a bit of a change. I think I might need to read this alongside something else and bounce between, because there are moments where I'm in the mood for it, and a lot of moments where I haven't been in the last 2 days. And the problem is, I just feel like Live Ship, they're long books. Shogun is almost 1,200 pages. That's split up over a couple months, but like they're not short books. So I feel like I should just dedicate my time to finish one of them, but whatever. We'll see.
I'll let you know. The Ship of Magic that I have is like deceptively short, because it's like 670 pages, which I was like, oh, that's nothing. And I like got the audiobook for it too, and it's like a 32-hour audiobook. And I was like, okay, 670 pages is a lie. Small ass font. I see.
Yeah. Mine's, I think, 7 something. I hear a lot of mixed things about Durfee books. That's my experience as well. I have the first one. The
interesting thing is, I feel like everybody seems to enjoy them, but it takes them forever to read them, unless you're like Mark, who hated the naming, because there's like a dog named Beer Mug. Like the names are dumb. So like if that takes you out of it, then you're not gonna like it.
That might actually take me out of it. I don't love that.
But it is like an interesting perspective on
Mark's talk.
I mean, the themes are a lot about religion. So like if you want to have a lot of like fantasy discussion about religion, then sure.
Right.
If you don't, and stupid names get on your nerves, then I would say stay away.
Shit. That's one where I would have to test it out and read a few chapters and see how I feel. And I need to be in the right mood for that too. Yeah. What's up, David? How's it going? David is he also does Jiu Jitsu. What's up, man? The Last Town. Awesome. So I think...
Is that a Frederick Bachman? What is that?
No, that is, I believe, the last book. I believe it's the last book of the Wayward Pines trilogy by Blake Crouch. So one is called Pines, the next one's called Wayward, and the last one is called The Last Town, I believe. And so I think we had a chat, and I sort of recommended where to start, because he was asking me about Blake Crouch, and he was going to pick a couple different places. And I'm like, hey, why don't you try those ones? Those ones are fun. Have you read Blake Crouch at all?
No, I mean, I tend to avoid science fiction because I find that I have a hard time shutting off my sciencey brain. Yeah. So I nitpick the ever-living Christ out of anything that's trying to push itself forward as like real science. I'm like,
okay. I get it. I get it. Yeah.
And so I hear Blake Crouch, especially like my kind of litmus test for that kind of stuff is usually Angela, because she just finished her PhD in like structural biology. So she's in a similar science field as me. And she's like, no.
Yeah. Have you read Martha Wells? That's have you read Murderbot?
I know what it is, but no.
I've read, so Yeah. I read Murderbot. I read the first 2 novellas. I bought the set of 4, which were grossly overpriced in my opinion. But anyway, but I was on BookTube, so I have to own them. So I read the first 2 and I wasn't impressed. And there's a lot of appreciation for those, and people like love Murderbot as a character. I just didn't get it. The humor didn't work for me. I didn't really get it. So yeah, I wish I liked those more. I don't know if I'll try something different from Martha Wells. I think I'd like to say that I will, just to see if it was Murderbot or if it was Martha Wells. I don't know. But I think she's coming out with something this year. So I think that's probably what you're referring to. Traveling stories and road trip books. Yeah. I like a good like traditional like quest fantasy, to be honest. Like I do enjoy that. And I think you mentioned, Rodger, a couple of times that you like that.
You should read The War of the Spider Queen, Theo.
Yeah? Okay. Maybe I will. Thanks, man. Loved both Elantris and Warbreaker. Just read them for the first time last year. Yeah, I Warbreaker is one that I wanted to read with Ellie at Bibbidi Bobbidi Books. She's awesome, and we tried to fit that in. We just haven't been able to. That's one that I really want to read. I don't know which one would you read first? Should I just read Elantris and get that over with? Because like it probably gets way better. Or should I fit in Warbreaker earlier? Probably Elantris. I should probably start there.
I mean,
whatever.
That's the order we're doing it in. We're doing Elantris and then Warbreaker.
Okay, so I'll just follow along with you guys. Yeah. Don't worry about Shogun. It's not going anywhere. That's true. It's always going to be there. I also don't want to bail out of a read along, especially something that I'm kind of co-hosting, right? Like, how do you deal with that? When you set up a read along or a channel, whatever, for you and your channel, for example, specifically, I know that you're doing a bunch of co-hosted ones, but if you ever say like, hey, as a channel or as a server, we're going to read this book or this series, do you know that you're going to enjoy it? Did you put in a lot of thought and research into that? Or do you go, I want to try this. Does anyone else want to try it with me? And then to what extent are you committed if you really aren't feeling it? Like, I'm always worried about bailing.
Not at all, because like, I mean, the first read along that I ever started was probably March of last year. We were supposed to read The Faithful and the Fallen. I read Malice and then just like,
you were done.
Like, I'm not done. I did that book a disservice of the way that I read it, because I read it when I was on like a 3-day conference in Philadelphia, and I had to do a red-eye flight. So I read it on the red-eye flight, and then by the time I landed in Philadelphia, I had to literally like change in the bathroom of the hotel and go to the conference without ever sleeping or doing anything. And it was like that weekend that I read Malice. So it's literally like a fever dream. I could not tell you anything besides maybe there's like giants involved. I literally have no idea.
I think I remember you saying like you literally didn't remember very shortly after finishing it. Like you didn't remember anything. Yeah. I'm going to reread Faithful and Fallen this year. It is kind of so actually I'm doing something interesting. So I'm rereading it because I'm curious if my tastes have evolved and if I have nostalgia for that series, because I read it at a specific time. I was at home. I had COVID. I was with my wife. It was a good time for us in terms of like just like, our lives and stuff. And I wonder, like, was it really that good? It was my first exposure to John Gwynne. I had just gotten kind of back into fantasy. It had a little bit of that classic flair to it. So I don't know. Will it hold up? I have no idea. I have the audiobooks this time, so I'm just going to fly through them and see if I remember it the right way, or if I'm just putting a little bit too much nostalgia on there. I wonder.
I feel like that's one of those quartets where everybody says, like, if you're lukewarm on book 1, then at least try book 2. Because they always say, like, book 2 through 4 is
stuff
like
continues to happen.
Book 1 is like...
Agreed. Malice is not without its flaws. In fact, it's a little clunky and there's some errors in it. It had a lot of promise and it had some tropes that I was kind of all there for, to be honest. But it does get better. It does get better and more technical, which is actually impressive. If you're an author that can show book over book improvement, I think that says a lot. Stormlight, I'll probably follow along with you guys when you guys are doing.
We're starting November because we're trying to get ready and read them every 3 months.
Yeah,
to give people lots of time.
Yeah, so
leading into Stormlight 5, November 2024.
Yeah, so David, check out Rodger's channel because he's part of this huge kind of Cosmere read along. There's probably a video there. Is it on your channel or is it on someone else's?
No, it's me. I host. I'm the
you're the main person.
People. Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, David, check out Rodger's channel and maybe jump along for the Stormlight stuff later this year. And then we'll read into 2024. And then by the time the 5th book is out, we're kind of there for it. So yeah, Characters got on my nerves.
What did you not enjoy? Oh, the
Uh,
characters? That's fine.
yeah. Are you a
I
character
mean, you
person?
don't enjoy anything, Mark. Like, let's be honest.
Are you a character person or a plot person? Or are you
Me?
even? Yeah.
I'm 100% plot driven. Like, I can
Plot.
excuse kind of annoying characters if the plot and like the lore is cool enough.
Okay.
If the lore and the world building sucks, I'm out.
Yeah, I don't know where I land with that. I used to say that I was much more plot. Now I feel like as I've evolved as a reader, I appreciate more, the characterizations a little bit more, but not with a lack of plot. Like it can't make up for plot. So I don't know. I think I'm pretty even. To be honest, Rodger, I think I'm more like you. I think plot needs to take the forefront, and I can excuse some character stuff. But if I have good characters without plot, like I'm out.
That's why I'm always nervous about starting first law. I have the first book, and I
didn't
always
like
hear, "Oh, it's
I didn't
all
like
vibes."
First Law.
They're always like, "It's all vibes, no plot," and I'm like, "Great, that's like the
So
anti-buzzword."
that was one of the first that I encountered where I was like, oh, hang on, like something's wrong with me. Like I'm not like everybody else. Like why don't I enjoy this? What did I do wrong as a reader? Like how did I consume this incorrectly? The audiobooks were incredible. The dialogue was second to none. I mean, the internal dialogue, the characters are memorable. Everything is amazing. Even the world building. People say, he'll even admit, world building is not his thing. I thought it was incredibly rich, and I enjoyed kind of being there. It's not like overly, expansive, but it was, it was more intimate. But the world building was there. I just didn't get it. Like I could have not read it and been like, I didn't care what happened to the characters. I wasn't surprised. I mean, there's a bit of a twist at the end, but it was kind of just mid for me. And I was really kind of disappointed and shocked by that. So I give a lot of credit to the writing.
Expecting to not like it, so maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so. Murderbot is absurdly expensive, and that's why I'm out. Also,
the only one though, because I'm supposed to be reading Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky this month.
I'm reading that right now,
and it's like $30 for the novella.
So I have the ebook. Yeah, I have the ebook.
Even the ebook is like 15.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy actually. I'm reading it right now,
like,
and honestly,
150, 200 pages, like.
Yeah, and Rodger, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's an ogre like in the middle of this book that comes in, and his name is Theo. Fucking ridiculous. He's such a dick too. Anyway, whatever.
Art imitating life.
Yeah, exactly. It is a little disappointing for me paying the same price for a 150-page book, and my brain works that way, and I'm.
But I also get afraid that if they decide that $30 is what it's for a 150-page book, then what would they make a $900 page book? Because they're not going to make the novella cheaper; they'll just make the longer one bigger.
I know. What's up, Mike? How's it going? Yeah, he says the same thing. Like my brain works that way. Mike and I are both in finance, and like right away I'm just like, like the value doesn't compute. Like how does I don't understand as intimately as some other people do how the publishing industry works and how authors get paid and to what extent with ebooks and audiobooks or whatever. But I can't justify paying the same price. And in my head, I want ebooks to cost like $5 and I'll buy the shit out of them. I will. And when I want something on my shelf, I'll pay the premium. But sometimes you can't even find, the ebook, or you can only get the ebook. And it's like you said, $20-$30. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like it doesn't make sense.
Mike is the king of the ebook deals. He waits and buys those suckers when they're on like the 99-cent sale.
Absolutely.
You have like 700 books on your Kindle.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's tough. It's tough. I'm the same way. Crouch writes thrillers with a sci-fi twist rather than hard sci-fi. I'm a physics student and have no problem with his science explanations. Yeah, it is tough. If you're like immersed in that academic world, it might be hard to see through some of those issues or whatever, or plot holes or inconsistencies. But I think if you can just take the story as it is, it's very soft. He doesn't dwell on all that stuff for a reason, because he's like, people as smart as you would pick it apart. So he tries not to do that. So I think you can still enjoy them.
Sci-fi is also just different, right? We're usually looking at like a lens on society, looking at how different technological advancements or what if scenarios would affect society. And I think a lot of people like sci-fi when they have a job where, I don't know, it's more just like not as intensive on their brains. And so they like having that kind of engagement of like the critical thinking through sci-fi, whereas I don't need that.
Right.
I
Right.
literally do that every day of my life. And so when I'm reading, I'm looking for more of like a fun time or something that like sweeps me away. And I have
Yeah.
never found a sci-fi that does that for me, unless it's like sci-fantasy. Like I enjoy Dune except for the homophobic stuff.
Yeah.
So like I like sci-fantasy blends. I mean,
Yeah.
have you read Dune?
I
Homophobic
have
everywhere.
I have
All
read
of the
Dune.
bad guys are gay or effeminate, and they're evil.
It is true. That is true. I will
Like
say
some of the stuff doesn't age super great for me, but
yeah, of course. So have you continued with Dune? Have you read the next two at least or not? Just
not
the
yet.
one?
I'm kind of waiting for the pretty editions.
I pre-ordered them because I have that one Dune edition and I enjoyed Dune
Yeah, I
a
have
lot
the
more than I
orange
thought.
one.
So I pre-ordered the other two that are going to come out. So we'll see. But have you read Sun Eater? I think that's one that
No.
you're meaning to. I think
keep
you'll quite
meaning
enjoy
to.
that.
I keep intending to, and then here we are.
I think you're going to enjoy that. Mike says you aren't a real booktuber until you schedule a read along and you bail from your own read along. Yeah, man.
So I'm a real booktuber. You're welcome.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if I commit, I commit, but also then I'm not enjoying myself as much. And I feel like I need a little bit more autonomy with that and a little bit more choice and mood reading flexibility. So I don't know how that's going to go, but we'll see. I'll get back to what I'm reading. It's fine. Trad book Kindle prices.
That's why I think I've shied away from doing like read-alongs and readathons. Yeah. And I've gone more towards the buddy read route where I'll read it with like one or two friends because then I feel no compulsion.
So here's the thing, but Rodger, that's how these things escalate. So usually these start with one or two people and then another, and then it's like, oh, you're reading, oh, I'm going to jump it, blah, blah. And then it's like, okay, well, I'll just post it and whoever wants to, and then it just blows up and then you're an asshole if you don't. For me,
the buddy reads tend to be more on a whim.
Yes.
It's not usually like scheduled and it's not usually for like years.
True.
Because like the first big readathon is obviously this Cosmere one that's like multi-year.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. When I see Kindle prices or whatever ebook price is the same, it's just it's pretty crazy. Everyone's having live chats tonight, but no one invited me, so I'm crashing everywhere. I'll make them love me. Sorry, man. Soon, I promise. I was almost drinking out of your mug, and then I grabbed mine instead because I'm always drinking yours. Yeah. It's cool to have you though. I appreciate it. What was the last like 5-star book that you read? What was the last like not even 5-star book? What was the last like really good book that you read? Like the best one?
I haven't even read. What am I reading? Who am I?
I know. I hate that question because I'm always like, oh shit, like what am I actually reading right now? I never know.
What have I been reading lately? Was any of it 5 stars this year? Oh, I really like The Priory of the Orange Tree.
I have that on my shelf. Yeah. I've heard
Princess, but I would not recommend that for you.
Would you recommend Priory to me or not? Because that's a long one to
I think you actually might like it because it has some kind of cool lore and it's kind of world building heavy and less character focused. So I think people who don't love it, their complaints are usually that the characters aren't as nuanced. But I thought that the character work that was there was compelling. Like I really liked it.
Right.
I jumped on I'm getting the fancy ones. I got in on the first 9 minutes of the Broken Binding sale and got the
I saw that
straight edge versions. Is
her new book out yet?
It was out in February.
Okay. Yeah, I did see that nice edition of that one. Yeah, that would be I'll try it eventually. It was on my most intimidating books list because I think because it's huge and I've heard like differing opinions on it.
Do you like dragons and do you like hidden mage societies kind of
totally
behind the scenes? So like it's very that there's kind of like these two competing nations where one of them believes that their monarchy is the only thing keeping the evil dragon at bay, and so they think all dragons are evil. And then across the sea, there's a different nation that has like this relationship with dragons where they ride them, and it's like this prestige position to be a dragon rider. And so it's kind of the political complexities of those nations needing to come together because the evil dragon may or may not be awaking. And so his minions are coming back, and there's like cool evil dragons, and I thought it was fun.
That actually sounds pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. That actually sounds pretty good. Robin Hobb will convert anyone to a character-driven reader. I can argue that happens. But
Assassin's Quest, I liked because of the plot and the lore deepening.
So I agree. I agree with you. What I will say is that I think she makes readers appreciate character stuff more. But I still don't think I can rely just on that. So she's shown me how good character work can be and how much it can add and how much you can rely on it for a while. But I'm like you, I eventually I need some plot. I scared Mike off by saying I didn't love First Law. It's not that I didn't like it. I just didn't like it as much as I thought I would. And I didn't like it as much as everyone else did, which shocked me. And I was confused by that as a newer book. I was like, what did I do? But I think that's what it came down to.
It's up there with Gardens of the Moon of books that are like off the shelves and nobody sees them, but I intend to try.
Yeah. And when I talk about First Law, like I said, some of that character work is incredible. The dialogue is incredible. The writing is superb.
People are calling you out. They didn't know that you didn't like a popular series because you hid it from them. And so now they're thinking that you're that booktuber that only talks about things that they like. So they can't trust you as a reviewer no more.
It's true. I'm going to stop doing live streams because I lose friends every time I do it. So it is what it is. But no, I gave so much credit to Joe Abercrombie for those books. I didn't like if another book came out in the First Law universe, like let's say following that trilogy, which people would lose their minds over, I would be like, I just don't care. Like, I'm sorry, guys.
Well, that's
I'm speaking my truth.
Because the second you tell me all vibes, no plot, instantly flaccid. Like, I'm not excited at all.
Yeah. No, it's an excellent. Like, I can see the quality. Like, it's very, very good. It just didn't do for me like what I hoped it would. However, I have gone on record on videos before saying I think I owe that series a reread because I went through it fairly quick. I took my time with the last one more than I should have because I just got busy. And I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm just lying to you. Maybe I don't need to. Maybe nothing is wrong with me, Mark. I don't know. John hates me now too.
I think you just don't like solely character focused books, and that's okay.
Yeah. Look, people are hating so much, but then we have David who DNF'd the blade itself. So it is what it is.
Go hate on David. Start adding David.
Yeah, exactly. If everyone could just hate David, that'd be great. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Jezal sucked. Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, there were so many
pampered prince dude, right? That's supposed to be like kind of obnoxious.
That's right. And even the characters that are like annoying, like they're still so well done. Some of the best character work and dialogue I've ever read. It just wasn't like I think we rely on plot a lot more than the First Law was able to offer. But yeah.
I mean, because I'm also somebody who loves like the Dark Souls games. Like, if you give me cool enough lore, I'm kind of there for it. Like, there's really very little story, even though you can watch hours of Vati Vidya after you beat the games to figure out what the hell even happened. But like, you're in it for the cool lore and the cool world and the cool magic. You're not in it for like cool character or story. So like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, Glokta is one of the best characters I've ever read. And I still think about that character. It's crazy. And obviously Stephen Pacey's.
Do you like how I know all these characters, but I've never read them?
Right. And Stephen Pacey's audio narration of it is impeccable. Like, it's incredibly impressive. But yeah, just on the whole as a story, I could take it or leave it. I think there was so much to love in between, but yeah, I don't know. It wasn't my 10 out of 10. So it is what it is. But yeah, Glokta's amazing. Logan, worst character. Logan is interesting. Steve's stream became a Bash Red Rising stream and now a Bash First Law stream. What a night.
I'm not joining in the bashing. I haven't read it yet.
No, we're not bashing it. It's good. It's good. You know what? I love it. It's my favorite series of all time. Red Rising. Mike loves Red Rising. I was just actually before this, I was just about to watch his like newest Red Rising video that I never got to. Have you read Red Rising? You say you haven't read a whole lot of sci-fi. Do you know how you'd land on that? Like, what do you think? Would you think you'd like it from what you've heard? Presumably you've heard a little bit about it. You know of it.
I mean, I kind of like competition stories, and it sounds like that it has some elements of that.
At
least it sounds very dystopian in its world building with like kind of a caste system. So like, I like those things. Like, it's one of the reasons I like the Final Strife, because it was very much like almost Hunger Games-esque and had that dystopian kind of caste system against a fantasy backdrop. So I don't see why I wouldn't like it. But I don't know. I like sci-fi movies. I just don't know why I haven't broken through and liked sci-fi books.
Interesting. I'd like to see you try Sun Eater. I think there's a lot to appreciate there. Do you like are you not that you'd be a prose snob, but do you appreciate very technical, flowery writing, or do you try and just stick to the basics?
It depends.
Yeah.
If it's there's a point where it becomes too much. I mean, first binding, but like I can appreciate like a nice metaphor. I can appreciate
Right.
it when there's like beautiful imagery. I can appreciate that stuff. But if it starts to get like too overdone and we're starting to like enter, I don't know, like the scarlet letter levels of just technical semicolons,
Right.
not as much.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't able to jump on the read along that was happening with Mike and stuff, and they're doing a reread and stuff, and I wasn't able to jump on that. But I think Red Rising is one that I'd like to fit in this year for sure, and say that I've read it. I own the 5 that came as a set. I owned the first one before that for a long time ago, and then I got rid of it. I bought the whole set, and I just sat on them. But now that we're getting the new one, like I don't know, maybe I should jump on that. I think I would enjoy it, to be honest. Yeah, I've
That's
heard
a long time to wait.
Yeah,
Isn't that like one of the standalones, like somewhere after the first?
and I own it. Like I have it. Yeah, Best Served Cold. So apparently the standalones are pretty good, and if you like the First Law universe, you'll very much appreciate these. And people have favorites, obviously, and whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I can't not like the main trilogy as much, and then like really enjoy it's just too many books to like care about.
I hear you, Katya.
Everyone I know likes Jezel, and I'm just not on board. My favorite character is way down on everyone else's list. Yeah. Yeah, not everyone loved the Blade. Like not everyone likes these books, right? And when people start with the Blade itself, Alicia says it had issues with the Blade itself. I know a lot of people that picked it up and was like, "Where is this going?" Like, there's nothing is happening. So if that's you, then I don't think it gets better, to be honest. Yeah, I wonder maybe people can chime in. So Abercrombie fans, First Law fans, can I pick up a standalone and instead of trying the First Law trilogy again and giving that a shot, can I pick up one of the standalones and see if like as a standalone book, it's enjoyable? Like maybe I should try that. Maybe that's a better strategy. Authors get a much larger percentage on Kindle books, indie authors anyway, so pricing it so highly is just extracting extra money from people unnecessarily. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I do you buy a lot of ebooks? I know you have an ebook library, but do you buy a lot of them?
I mean, the ebooks that I have, they tend to be ARCs at this point that I get sent from publishers or whatever.
Right.
Or like I use it because I use the library a lot, so I have it all hooked up so that I just send it from the Libby app.
Right. Heard many mixed things, Shattered Sea. Yeah, I've heard a lot of mixed things on that one as well. I'm just catching up a bit on the comments. Love Dune and never noticed the homophobia. So I mean, when you say it, it's like, holy shit. Like, yeah, you're right. But
I mean,
it's not.
Duke Harkonnen only has boys that he basically molests that look like Paul.
Yes,
then there's like the assassin dude who's like kind of effeminate. Like, come on.
Yeah. There is some of that going on.
I liked the rest of it. I thought the world building was cool. I liked it when we got to the Sand Peoples. I don't remember what they're called. The Fremen. I liked all of that kind of stuff. I liked I thought the lore and the kind of sci-fi fantasy blend was cool once we got to that. But like the initial, some of that stuff, I was like,
yeah. People let down by Shattered Sea. I think that was his kind of YA one. I remember hearing Mike say that it was supposed to be YA, but like it wasn't really YA, but it was more YA than his other stuff. So I don't know. You and I have had this debate about YA, what that means. You can't just say YA as a genre. You can't just say it's YA, therefore X. I don't like what. I don't know. I'm always very careful when I talk about that now because you traumatized me actually. So
you're welcome. In your DMs like a bully.
But I appreciated that because what I said like, oh, it read a little bit YA, and so therefore I didn't enjoy it, and kind of left it there. And you made a really good point of like, well, you should probably qualify that a little bit. And YA is not a genre, so speak properly. Reading Half a King right now, maybe because of low expectations, but I'm really enjoying it. Definitely missing the grit. Yeah, I think those lack what I did like in First Law. So I would be really hesitant myself to try those. We have so many similar opinions on things. I love it. Other than some things we don't like each other's, that's normal for anyone. Yeah, not everyone can like everything their friends do. That is true. Your best book of last year, that was Dragon Mage, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it was called? What did you like?
Yeah.
What did you like? Obviously, you have a video, but like, what did you like so much about that? Like, why was that? Because I almost bought it. I almost bought it and I didn't.
So I think one, it has the classic fantasy vibes that I really appreciate. I like a classic good versus evil story. I like
yeah,
knowing who the good guys are, having people that you can root for. Like I know that there's that big trend in grimdark and having morally gray characters, but I don't always need that in my life. Sometimes it's fun to have
right.
that comforting read. And then I appreciated it because I also read a lot of Sarah J. Maas last year, so a lot of like
Yeah,
borderline.
you did read a lot.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I got bullied into it. I'm very easy to peer pressure into buddy reads.
Noted.
So,
Perfect.
Like, I think I appreciate it even more in hindsight because there was really no romance element to it. So, like, that's such a prevalent thing when you start thinking about like asexual representation and stuff, and like not having such a strong romantic underpinning. It's hard to find books like that. And
Right.
so I really appreciated that didn't really have a strong romance element. It had a really good platonic, like male friendship was really the core relationship in that story. I liked that it had neuroatypical representation because the main
Oh
character
yeah,
was
that's right.
autistic.
That's right.
Like
Yeah.
so like there's so many things where there was like it was good diversity representation of the main character that wasn't like preachy. It was just kind of there, and like his like difference was something that made him better at the magic, but it didn't feel like cheesy. So like I just appreciated a lot of those things. And I know people complain that like the pacing is kind of weird, but like I didn't notice, but I probably also read it in like 2 days. So it's hard to notice pacing when you like,
but it's a thick book.
Fast.
Is it not?
It's like
big.
900 pages. Yeah.
Wow. So for 2023, one of my goals is to have more diversity in my reading, and not just in authors, but also in character representation and stuff. So actually, I'm going to take note of that one, Rodger, and maybe bump that up the list.
Because it's pretty rare. Like if you think about it, neurodivergent representation in adult fantasy as a main character, not a side character.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, and I like the platonic relationships. I like the bromances and stuff. And I tend to be wary of romances in my book, and love triangles aren't something I can do, but a good romance has a place, I think, in any book. But
I usually don't like love triangles, but the best one I've ever read was in the Infernal Devices, but I would not recommend it for you.
Gotcha. Okay. Noted.
It is basically like urban fantasy romance with strong fantasy elements, not fantasy with strong romantic elements. Like I think you could maybe like the Jasmine Throne, which I think has a strong romance element, but it's like a subplot. But I would not recommend Infernal Devices.
Yeah. What would you, if you were going to recommend, other than maybe the ones we've touched on, if you were going to recommend a book for me, like what would you like to see me try that I haven't yet?
War of the Spider Queen, because I want more people to read it. I want people to stop only reading Drizzt, Mike, and read other things in the Forgotten Realms that are arguably better.
Oh, interesting. Is that in the same world? No.
Yeah, so the Forgotten Realms is like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign setting that they also wrote a bunch of novels in, and there are multiple series from multiple different authors. I think there's probably like 300 or 400 books in the Forgotten Realms like world, and they each have like different series in different locations at different times. So they have like a shared timeline, but they don't necessarily connect. It's not like Realm of the Elderlings or something. So the War of the Spider Queen is a 6-book series where I think every book is written by a different author, but the overarching plot was penned by R.A. Salvatore, the same guy who wrote Drizzt. So it's this group of dark elves, their goddess has gone silent, and they get tasked with this quest to go find their goddess in her home plane and find out why she's no longer giving them her blessings.
Interesting. It sounds pretty cool. I know that I think Mike has been in contact recently with R.A. Salvatore and might have him on the channel. So that might be pretty cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
So, and that one, if you like more legendary characters, they are horrible people. They're dark elves. They're very evil. They do backstabbing, conniving things to each other. So I think somebody like you would also appreciate that because they're snarky, backstabbing, underhanded amusement, but it's also very high fantasy with magic everywhere.
Interesting. That sounds pretty good. Yeah, I need to balance my fantasy a little bit. Like I want to go back and read some of the classic stuff, but I also want to keep up with the newer stuff and try different types of fantasy. And Yeah, like I want to read the next series, not the next one that I want to read, but a priority is going to be the Greenbone saga because it just seems like something I'd enjoy, something a little bit different. You haven't read those yet, have you?
I'm supposed to read it in December. I have Jade City.
Yeah, I actually bought all three. I bought the one, and then like an idiot, I'm like, I'll enjoy these. I'll buy the other two. But as a martial artist and as somebody who likes mafia stories and things like that, I don't know. Maybe it'll work. Like so that's what I want to do is read a little bit of different types, right? But
Well, it was my trade because I had the Illumicrate Babel and I wanted it away from me. I needed it gone. So I sent it to a friend who loved Babel and she sent me Jade City.
yeah, that's probably a pretty good trade. So I have Babbel. I was gifted it by someone super generous, but I'm wary to try it. And it probably comes from a couple different reasons. One, I just haven't been in the mood for it yet because it's a different type of book. Another is I'm wary about the author because I hear really weird things about the Poppy War. And so I don't know if I'm going to like this one because I would trust those people's opinion on that trilogy as well. And that's why I didn't read that one. But it's very different. You can't compare those two, right? I'm
Well, I hear that the
correct on that,
character
right?
work is very much the same from what I hear. I didn't read the
Oh,
Poppy War, but I heard that
oh.
if you like the way that she does characters in the Poppy War, then you'll love Babel. But if you didn't love the way that she did characters in Poppy War, it's very similar kind of character arcs to Poppy War.
Interesting. Okay.
So I had one person, Elle from Elliot Brooks, was talking to me about it, and
Yeah.
she was saying that like it felt like literally she knew how the book was going to end because the character arc was almost the same as what happened in the Poppy War.
Interesting. Well, that's not good. I'm gonna read it eventually, and I'll let you know what I think about it. Did you do a dedicated video on Babel? I think I remember watching it because you talked about the linguistics and all this, and I think you gave her credit, and you were like, "Yeah, I can see," but like it just didn't work. So yeah, I don't know. And even the setting should have worked, but it just didn't for you, right?
That, and then just I already went in with my arms crossed because there's been so much conversation like idolizing RF Kuang for writing multiple books while doing her master's and now her PhD, and I'm like, why are we just celebrating her for being unhealthily productive?
I remember you saying that. That's right. Yeah. And I have my own opinions of that too, going through and doing a ton of postgraduate stuff and myself. And yeah, there's a weird culture around academics, I think. So yeah, that is interesting. I'm not going to DNF your book, John. I promise. I'll finish it. I'm not going to, I won't,
This book is
I
the
won't
one
promise
with
I'll
the
love it.
cool,
Yeah.
it's like the volcano magic school, right?
Yeah. I don't have my glasses on right now, so I can't see. I'm 36 years old. I can't see shit. So anyway, I have it somewhere. It's on my shelf somewhere. I'll pull it up eventually. But yeah, no, if it reminds me of Abercrombie, that's a good thing. Abercrombie is an excellent writer. It's just that story, I was like, whatever.
And Mark, I'm a sucker for brotherhoods. I like brother dynamics.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons that I like Dragonlance Legends? It's the second trilogy in the Dragonlance world because Raistlin and Caramon, I still love them.
I do too. I like that dynamic too. I don't know. I'm an only child. Do you have siblings?
I have an older brother, but we're not close.
So I like that platonic relationship. I like the bromances. I like the found family stuff. I think probably because of that, because I relationships. I don't know. It's interesting, but yeah, can't like dislike anything without the rabble coming after him. Yeah,
when you're
really
at a certain
tough
size of booktuber, like that's just the internet these days. These darn kids.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Let's say tomorrow you wake up and obviously you're on this live stream. So tomorrow you're going to wake up famous probably. So let's say you wake up to 100,000 subscribers. How will your outlook change? Will you change how you do your videos? What would change? Would nothing change? Are you just Rodger through and through? Like
I like to think I'm pretty much the same. Like I'm hoping that you feel like talking to me. I'm very similar in my videos.
Yeah.
I try to not be overly filtered or overly analytical because I like watching the kind of booktube where it feels like you're sitting down with
authentic.
Your friend over coffee talking about a book. Like that's what I like. And I don't necessarily love the booktube that feels super produced and people feel like they're putting on like a persona for their YouTube videos.
Right.
Like that doesn't resonate with me. And then I'm like, well, why do I care about your opinions? Because I don't even know who you are as a person. I want to like connect on all levels. So I would like to think that maybe I'd get nicer setup and stop using my phone to film videos. Who knows? Like,
I think you have a good setup. I'm actually impressed with what you're able to do with just a phone. I was actually surprised when you told me, or when I found out, because I think you told me, and I was like that can't be true. I think it goes back to Rodger's point earlier. It's fine to not like a book and have a difference of opinion as long as you aren't talking down to the people that do or don't personally. Yeah, like it's okay when people. Yeah, that's the thing is I'm always worried to tell somebody that I didn't like their favorite book, or we didn't like the same book the same amount, or whatever. Like it's I don't know. I feel like it can be taken personally, and it shouldn't, because we're all adults, but it is very often. And
I just
I don't
find
know.
it interesting because it's always interesting to hear what stuck out to you that made you not like something, and then I'm like, oh, I didn't
Yeah.
even notice that. Like Mark saying like, oh, he didn't even notice the homophobia in Dune.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. We all have different lenses through which we view the world, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's funny because I have kind of a small buddy reading group on Discord with, like, 3 other really good friends of mine, and we read books here and there together. We haven't for a while, but last year we read a couple as buddy reads, and 2 of them made it on my top 5 most disappointing books. And they're like, "Oh, so the books that we read you just hate." So that's cool. It just worked out that way. It's not my fault. And I think we actually ended up having quite similar opinions, which was nice, and it's always a safe space and all that stuff. But I wonder how I would have dealt with it if they really liked it, and if it was like their top books of the year and now they're my most disappointing books. Like, I don't know, like, whatever, who cares? As long as you can justify it and you have reasons, you're not just like, I didn't like this book because you liked it. It's
because
totally
it was
different.
YA.
Because it was YA. Yeah. Fuck me. I'm so sorry. Anyway. Yeah. Bring Name of the Wind opinion way more than I do. Yeah. Did you read Name of the Wind? Have you read it?
No.
I have. I started it. I think that's one that I can say I DNF'd because I didn't go back to it, and it's been a while. It's been like 2 years now, maybe more. No, more. But it's one that I have a nice edition of it. I think. Do you have that edition? That anniversary edition? Did I see it in the video? No. Okay. I think I saw it somewhere recently, and I'm like, oh, I have that version too, and I wonder if I'm going to read it again, because it's one that I would like to see where I land. Mike notoriously didn't vibe with it. He said that if he writes the 3rd one, he'll go back and give it another shot. He didn't really see what the fuss was about. Madison, on the other hand, who's another really good friend of mine, she actually quite liked it. She's like keen to continue with the next one. So I don't know. I usually vibe with both people, and I usually have similar tastes, or at least I can kind of peg where I'll land based on like what they say or how they felt. Doesn't mean I'll like exactly what they like, but I can kind of gauge. With this one, I have no idea. And I didn't read that much before I stopped. I probably read maybe a third, but it's a long book. But a third is not nearly enough to, I think, really, sink your teeth into it. So it can for some books, not for this one. I don't know. We'll see. But when you heard your opinion on Name of the Wind when other people bring it up, yeah, that gets brought up a lot. So what is the cat's name?
That was Katya.
Katya.
She heard my
Katya?
husband getting home though, so she was starting to she wanted to go see what was going on.
Perfect. So yeah, my cat makes appearances sometimes. He's outside. His name's Gordon, so he's pretty.
I
cool.
have 2 cats. We have Katya and Jujubee. They're named after drag queens.
Are they really? That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. I'm just catching up a little bit. Sold me on ogres. I didn't even have that on my radar. Does Tchaikovsky have a basement of else writing for him or something? Yeah, have you read any other Tchaikovsky? The answer is probably no, because it's
No.
more sci-fi, I think, right? Ish?
I mean, I hear Elder Races is really good, and doesn't he have a fantasy series? I don't know. But I think it's Ben's fault. I think he's the one who put that in my little mug of choices, and it was the first one to come out. So here we are.
Yeah. So I'm about halfway through it, and it's okay. I'm curious where it goes, because it tries to tackle a lot in a very short period of time, and there's a lot of themes and stuff, but I don't know. We'll see how it lands. This is kind of how I used to deal with it. I used to say YA is kind of an age bracket, but not the protagonist. I mean, we can have adult books with young protagonists or whatever, but really just the the demographic to which it's catered for the most
It's
part.
the PG-13 of the book world, kind of.
Right. That's what I mean when I say YA. That's kind of what I mean. So, what's up, Alex? How's it going, man? Yeah. So I mean, I know your husband came back. I know you have stuff to do. Anything else you want
So
to
the
talk
Mortal
about
Instruments,
before we wrap
it's
up? Yeah.
okay if you didn't love Mortal Instruments. Infernal Devices is much better and doesn't have fake incest, so that helps.
Oh God. What remind me? What is that a series? Like, what is it called?
The entire series is called The Shadow Hunters. It's
Right.
kind of
Okay.
Buffy-esque. It's urban fantasy, but she has very strong, like a lot of people read it for the angsty CW level drama, interpersonal
Okay.
relationships, not for the plot.
Is that the
But
one in your video where you talked about it's like Buffy, but it's different?
Yeah.
You mentioned that,
Yeah,
and
so
my
that's the
ears
Infernal
perked a bit.
Devices.
Okay, cool. Okay.
So the Infernal Devices I really liked, but I think it has such a strong romance element. So, and it has a love triangle, but it's the only love triangle I've ever. That's not true. There's one other love triangle because there's one in the Final Strife that I thought was really well done, but it's more a love triangle because somebody's questioning their sexuality and less the bad boy versus the good boy kind of cliche love triangle.
Mhm.
And then the one in Infernal Devices I thought was really well done. But those are the only two that I can remember not thinking it was a negative that it was there.
Interesting. Okay, interesting. I was talking to Alex offline earlier, and he mentioned he's reading Harrow the Ninth. And
I've been meaning to try Gideon forever, but
yeah,
I hear it's very polarizing. It's the Empire of the Vampire of the sci-fi world. I feel like strong tone, and you either love it or you hate it.
right. And so Alex just finished Gardens of the Moon, and he's like, "This is frying my brain more than Malazan."
I've heard that,
Really?
especially Harrow is like really confusing until like 2/3 of the way in.
Do you have to read them in order? Because I don't know if Alex read Gideon, but I might have missed that because he must have.
I would hope so, because I would imagine. I mean, I think it's a series that's supposed to go.
Yeah, for sure. And people rave about it. Like Jordan from Jordan Reads, she wants us to try it, but I haven't. So I want to see how this wraps up for Alex and where he lands with it. But probably the most confusing book I've read. Like that doesn't make me have confidence. I don't know. Doesn't sound like something I'll like. Hey Joanna, how's it going?
You mean
what's up, Kyle?
Joanna? You gotta say it properly.
Joanna? Say it again.
Joanna.
Yeah,
I
always get them. I always screw them up. You're right. Thank you. Hated Babel, pushed through to the end, but hard pass.
That is correct reading. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So would you ever read anything else by her? Because you haven't read The Poppy War. Would you read something else?
I'm curious to try, but I feel like people love Poppy War, and then they always make it sound like it goes kind of downhill. And then I haven't heard anybody love how Poppy War trilogy ended. So I'm like, it's very low on the priority list. And after Babel, it went even lower.
Yeah. So when I hear people talk about it, when I even look at the synopsis, it does sound like it could be a good reading experience for the right person. I don't know if most people would say that it's like fun or enjoyable. I don't know if it's supposed to be, but I want to enjoy it, and I don't think I would. So I'm steering away for now.
I just.
But I'm so curious.
Like, if you're gonna have those themes of racism and colonialism, obviously I agree. Colonialism was ass. Like hello, like it introduced homophobia into many areas of the world that it didn't exist previously. So like. I agree with the message, but I don't need you to put it on like a neon billboard in my face. Like I get it.
Right.
Like I know going into this book, I already agree.
Yeah. Hey Madison, how's it going? Yeah, you missed the part where I was telling Rodger that we both kind of were talking about Rodger around the same time, and we shared videos to each other. Like, check out this guy. He's so funny. So anyway, we started watching around the same time. So you brought us closer together, Rodger.
Okay, that's what I thought. It's like the one with like the shimmery shield, with, like a castle and like a volcano.
I'm really pissed off.
Of Ashnot?
It's Trials of Ashnot. That's right. Let's see.
Look at me go, remembering things.
I told you I'm blind. It's right there. I just have my goddamn glasses on. You see?
Yeah, I've seen the cover. And
Very
I've heard
cool.
good things.
I've heard excellent things for sure.
Because it's like Magic School, right? Magic School is always buzzword.
Yeah. I like to believe the only way I've changed from when I started and now is just everyone thinks I'm different. I don't think so. Just more busy since I'm working 50+ hours a week. on top of this. Yeah, Mike has an interesting situation where he started this and built this when he was kind of just chilling and he was, back in school and stuff. How do you fit this shit in? Because you're very busy too. Like, how do you struggle with fitting this in? Like,
I mean, I just don't. I just do it for fun. So since it's a
yeah,
hobby,
well,
I try
same,
not
of
to
course.
treat it because I know like a lot of people or the mics of the world who are overly analytical list makers who need to have schedules. I've just accepted that this is just my whimsical hobby. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
try to stick to at least one video a week. I've never
yeah.
been on the levels of those people who are doing 3, 4, 5 videos a week. I
I
just
I
could not.
can't. One a week is kind of where I sit, and then an extra video here and there if they're different, like if it's a tag or if it's something different or if it's a quick review that I'm like, I just want to talk about a book. But usually one a week is kind of my thing for sure because it's just
But
hard.
I'm
But it's
probably in
also
the 50 to 60 hours a week of work. So like
yeah.
my brain space for like planning things is just
Do you want to address this comment?
oh oh
I think he,
oh.
I think he agrees. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, at this point now, for Mike, it's become a second income stream. It's become a part-time job for sure. And he probably feels because he's a decent person that he owes viewers some content and some entertainment and whatever. So it does get to a point where you like there are times where I'm like, okay, I really need to film this video or I really need to edit this because I need to get, but then I'm like, I really just want to read right now. And then I have to say, like, I have to be honest with myself and say, look, if I don't read this book, like, I don't really have anything to talk about. No one's going to care. So I won't put out 2 videos this week. I'll put out one and I'll read and I'll enjoy myself because I think that people want to see us reading and enjoying stuff to be able to share and discuss
Well, if you're
like we are.
not
So,
reading, what are you making content about? Like,
well, that's the thing. And that's kind of the hard thing. I'm just going to change channels into something different, to be honest.
that's why I like doing 1 to 2 videos a week. Like if I'm feeling
It's a
particularly
sweet
excited, I'll
spot.
throw in an extra one. But
Yeah.
like if I'm not, then I'm fine with 1 video a week.
Yeah. Well,
Even
there
if
are
I'm
times
behind, like
where,
I'm a month behind doing the favorites of the year behind everybody else, but whatever.
yeah, I'm behind on wrap ups. I'm gonna have to do a wrap up catch up from like November because I haven't done it. Um, yeah, there are some people that'll message like we'll talk or whatever, and they'll say that they've recorded 3, 4, 5 videos that day just to get ahead, and I'm like, I just like 2 videos back
There's
to
a lot of
back
people
just
who bulk film.
drains me. And don't get me wrong, I think that's the right way to do it if you can. I think that makes complete sense and is efficient. And once you're warmed up, you're good to go, and maybe everything kind of flows better, and you're able to speak better and articulate. But I just can't. Like I can't. It drains me. It drains me.
But I like doing it when I'm excited about it. I don't want to wait and then bulk film
And
it
like
and then have the next
plan.
month content done. I want to be
That's
filming,
what I
talking
do.
about it. I tend to turn it around very quickly. I'm probably filming either the same day or the day before I'm actually posting a video. So
So
like
I do
I'm
that
having
too.
a conversation that I want to have, not a month in the
I
future.
do that too. I sit down, I record, and then I pop out the card and I start editing. Like I consider it like one video as a project. I'm like, hey, this is going to be my video for tomorrow or the next day or whatever. So I think I passed Ben's. When we're immersed in a book and it's working, I think the blinders just go up for anything that you might otherwise see as a fault in another read. Yeah. Do you ever find that your ratings are swayed by books, like by the books that you bracket around them? Like if you really enjoyed a book, do you think you'll rate the next book that maybe wasn't as good harsher because of what you just came off reading? Or are you trying?
Not really, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty good at looking at things in and of themselves. But I think that's a lot of years of Taekwondo refereeing, of having
Oh
to be
yeah.
able to watch hundreds of the same form in a
Yeah.
row and being able to be on my game enough to notice little flaws and look at them independently and score them correctly.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
I don't have that problem very much, but I rate more on enjoyment. So it's not like, did I enjoy this compared to that book? I don't care. Like I
Right.
gave 5 stars to Clockwork Princess, and I also gave 5 stars to A Game of Thrones. Like, fight me, I don't give a crap. Like,
Yeah.
I enjoyed them both for different reasons. Like, I don't have to only like things that are grim and horrible and awful people doing horrible things to each other in a cool fantasy world. I can also like angsty CW drama of creepy automatons coming to destroy the shadow hunters. Like, I mean, that's fun too.
Yeah. I agree with this. Like it's rare that you know, cover to cover, I just get immersed. And I think that the last time it happened was with Game of Thrones, and it hadn't happened for a really long time, where I literally just forgot I was reading. Like, I'd be on the train commuting to work, and like literally I'd have to look up and be like, shit, like where am I? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't happen very often. And when you're able to turn it off and not see the writing and not see everything, like, it's just you take it all in as one package. That doesn't happen very often. So yeah, it's nice
if it
when
doesn't
that does
happen for me, then I'm annoyed.
Right, exactly. That's probably like, you expect that now, right? Just to have something awesome. Ogres is so good. Just read the ebook. Just read the ebook. It'll take a few hours. Yeah, I'm reading it right now.
You know what else took a few hours? The Haunted V, and I'm haunted. So
how long? That was a full book though. How long was
it? It was
that
4
book?
hours. No, it was a novella for sure.
Oh, I thought it was a full book, and I'm like, I can't believe he suffered through that the whole time. Terrible. Yeah. Nikki is extremely organized and she just plans. She has really good like reading journals and all this stuff. I'm really jealous of her stuff and the way she's able to plan stuff. I want to get better at that, but again, I want to treat this as just a chill thing. And that's why I kind of like these, because you get to just talk and hang out, and it's stuff that we get to talk about that we don't always get to talk about, because we'll talk about a random video or a random book or a random thought or whatever, but now we can just kind of talk, and that's kind of what I enjoy. What do you enjoy most about like BookTube? Like, why are you doing this other than just?
I mean, I think I started it at the end of 2021 because I was in a rough spot. It was like the 4th year of my PhD. I was struggling with motivation. I was thinking about mastering out and giving up on it, and like just the mental health of it all was just not great. And I was just so focused on a daily basis about everything that made me miserable. And so I wanted to make a conscious effort to spend more time thinking about talking about things that I know that I love. And so that was like my whole catalyst for wanting to start a BookTube channel. I was like, whatever, I've been watching it for a few years and I just want to do something that I know brings me joy. And then now I think it's just the relationships. Like, I've made some really genuine friends. Like, I got to go hang out with Elle and Jashana in Arizona. I got to meet Chaz when we were there. We went to Changing Hands, and just like, I've made really genuine, lasting friendships. And I didn't necessarily expect that coming in. So it's already gotten way more than I ever expected from it. So
that's awesome.
I mean, I just do it because it's fun and I like talking about books with people that I like. And it's a way to kind of curate a niche of people who like the same thing you like. Because it's hard to do that as adults. Because it's not like we're hanging out with our friends every day at school anymore. Like, it's just like, you don't do that.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. The biggest disappointment for me around that vacation and when I had that was the fact that I couldn't see Alan. We'd been planning to get together for dinner or whatever. Even Leslie messaged me while I was there. She's like, wow, like, we have, like, I can see the fireworks from my place. Like, we have to, get together. And so it's just going to have to be next time. Obviously, Alan had to go and almost die. Thanks, man. But whatever. Hopefully he's doing better now. It seems like he's doing better, but yeah, that was too bad. He got in that serious car accident and he's doing a lot better, but he's still struggling. So it would have been nice to see him. And yeah, you build these relationships where you feel like I would go travel and see that person for sure. So that's pretty rare. It's pretty cool. I got called out for the comments, so I just kind of skipped a bunch. So whatever, it is what it is. But I can smell dinner being prepared. I know that you just got home and your husband probably wants you to come hang out. So
I hear him eating because he brought home. Food, so I hear the plate clinking because I hear him eating.
Totally. So I know that we had about an hour and a half and I ran a little overtime and stuff. And I just want to thank everybody for hanging out and dropping in, and Rodger for hanging out and stuff. And I'm sure we'll talk more. But that's probably it for now. I think we'll probably call it there. And if there's anything else you want to say before we go?
No, thanks for having me. It was fun to just chill and chat.
Yeah, I love it.
When I'm closer to you, you can come down and we can chill and chat in real life.
That'll be nice. We'll do a little collab. That'll be really cool when you move a little closer. Anyway, so yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for being part of it, and we'll catch you real soon. Bye.
Bye.